Like any game setting with RPG elements, Legend of the Five Rings allows for a great degree of specialization. This specialization takes the form of the different schools, essentially places where your character can gain certain skills. And if you want to acquire skills that are super special, you can opt for more advanced training techniques known as paths. Of course, what skills you want to acquire kind of depends on your character class. Yet another example of the RPG elements of L5R. There are technically several different classes like monks or artisans, but as a general rule, it kind of all falls into three very broad categories. The Bushi, which is your obvious fighter class, the Shugenja, that are your magician class, and the courtiers, which is basically your social class. Of course, each clan has its own schools, and each school has its own particular techniques that you can learn. This video is about the Shugenja of the Scorpion clan. With most great clans, you have at least one, though usually two, Bushi families, and then one courtier and one Shugenja. One of many things that make the Scorpion unusual is that they are among the few great clans to have two Shugenja families, the Yogo and the Soshi. But there's no need to worry about confusing the two, for while both families are magic-oriented, the Soshi and Yogo specialize in two very distinct types of magic that set them apart from one another. The Soshi deal in illusions, while the Yogo are experts of defensive warding. And since deception is essentially the hallmark of the Scorpion clan in general, we'll begin with the schools and paths of the Soshi family. As expected of a family whose magic is literally all about deception, the Soshi are secretive, even by Scorpion clan standards. After all, illusions don't work if you know the trick to them. Indeed, the family itself was founded on a deception. After the Day of Thunder and the defeat of Fu Leng, Shosuro, the only one of the Seven Thunders to survive, faked her death and returned to serve the Scorpion clan under the assumed identity of Soshi, making her the one being in the history of the Emerald Empire to found two separate families. In keeping with this clandestine nature, the Soshi family and its Shugenja are based entirely out of one place, Shiro no Soshi, sometimes called the Castle of Organization, nestled amidst the peaks of the spine of the World Mountains. And it is there, in the dojo of the Closed Eye, that the Soshi Shugenja are trained. Funnily enough, though, there really is only one named technique associated with the Soshi Shugenja school, the Kami's Whisper, sometimes called Soshi's Whisper, which teaches the caster how to employ a spell without being noticed. It makes sense. It's all the easier to ensnare someone in an illusion when they don't know they're being ensnared. But as far as techniques go, that's still pretty bare bones. Luckily, there is a bit more meat of interest on the bones regarding the dojo of the Closed Eye. Traditionally, the Soshi were always very reluctant to open the doors of the dojo, let alone those of Shiro no Soshi, to anyone else. The Yogo family, another Scorpion Shugenja family, was the lone exception, as the dojo of the Closed Eye is also where the Yogo Shugenja were trained. Even then, it was the Soshi who ran the school, and the sensei they produced to run the dojo tended towards being very cruel and very intolerant of failure. Behind all the understanding and practicing of magic, the Soshi sensei were determined to teach their students two things above all else. One, how to use their abilities for the sake of their clan, and two, the price of failing the clan. As you can imagine, with an attitude like that, it's no wonder that many students of the Soshi Shugenja school fear and respect their teachers. In order to winnow out the unfit among their students, the Soshi sensei encouraged fierce competition among the students. In addition to magic, students of the Closed Eye were also instructed in non-magical methods, like the use of poison and subterfuge. They are also taught how to fight with ordinary weapons without the use of magic, and even how to maneuver and argue in court. Because unlike most clans where the families tend to be very specialized into a certain thing, the Scorpion clan, much like their crane rivals, believe that it is sometimes better to be a jack of all trades than a master of one. It is better, so the thinking goes, to be flexible and capable of handling yourself in any kind of situation. Now, the thing about illusion magic, or tejina as it's called, derives from two elements. although for a time everyone outside of the Scorpion clan thought that it only came from one. First, there is the element of air. Pretty standard, one of the 5 elements, nothing really to see here. But it turns out, as the Scorpion clan discovered, shadow is an element, and like the other 5 elements, it too has its kami that can be invoked to cast spells. And this shadow magic in particular was used by both the Soshi and Shosuro families in their spying, which is quite fitting given that both of these families have the same origin point. It was only in the 12th century that the Scorpion clan learned that the shadow magic was actually from the lying darkness, a malignant force that had been trying to destroy the universe from the moment of its creation. Many who had employed shadow magic at the time were hopelessly corrupted by the darkness, and afterwards the Scorpion clan was forced to purge itself of anyone who might still bear the taint. Indeed, a secret known only to a few was that it was the very corruption of the lying darkness that caused Shosuro, aka Soshi, to disappear seemingly for good this time in the 1st century. But that's enough potentially spoilerific material for one video. Let's move on to the paths, starting with the Soshi duelist, who do what pretty much all Shugenja duelists do, honing their magical skills for specializing in magical duel, or Taryuji. Their preferred method involves using illusions to conceal their true strength from their opponent until it is too late. Their only known technique, the Mask of the Soshi, instructs them in how to use their illusions to deceive their opponent in the midst of a duel, making it all the easier to strike a decisive blow. Also, like all duelists, the Soshi kind are there to defend, if necessary, the honor of the Scorpion clan. But of course, because they are Scorpion, they are also trained to know when to allow the honor of the clan to take a hit if it serves the greater good of the empire. Next is the Soshi illusionist. Where most Soshi Shugenja employ small-scale illusions, meant to deceive individuals or small groups of people at a given moment, illusionists are powerful enough to weave large-scale illusions over large areas of land. Most of these illusions are dedicated to concealment. Employing the technique unending deception, illusionists are able to weave spells that will distract the curious from that which they have no business investigating, like, say, the shady dealings that the Scorpion clan so often engages in, or even permeate the atmosphere with a sense of fear and paranoia. Makes it easier to control the common folk, and certainly it is a known fact that peasants in Scorpion lands are far more superstitious than those in other parts of the empire. Next, the Soshi Deceiver. This was a path more than any other that was affected deeply by the Great Purge following the war against the darkness. Back in those ignorant days, the path was known as the Soshi Tejina and employed such techniques as the shadows and air, which strengthened the Shugenja's connection between the shadow and the element of void, and the way of the shadow, which the Soshi Tejina could use to call upon the shadow to grant them extra abilities. Naturally, after the purge, such techniques had to be abandoned, and the Soshi Tejina reorganized themselves as the Soshi Deceivers, who nowadays are trained at the Hidden Moon Dojo, which is also in Shiro no Soshi. A Soshi Deceiver essentially functions as a magician's spy, using illusion magic for infiltration missions, and employ such techniques as the Silent Soul, which teaches how to catch enemies unaware with their magic, or an Empty Breeze, which the Soshi Deceiver can use to become temporarily intangible, the perfect tool for sneaking in and out of an enemy stronghold. The last path is not necessarily a Soshi path, but it is tied to them, as it is based out of the Hidden Moon Dojo and is concerned with investigating the shadow and the lying darkness. It's called the Fading Shadows, and its principal purpose is to try and investigate the connection between the lying darkness and the element of void, as it was discovered in the war against the darkness that shadow-spawned things are vulnerable to the element of void. Their only known technique, Unravel the Shadows, teaches how to see through the deceptions of the lying darkness and how to use void magic against shadow-spawned creatures. This is especially significant as, of the 5 classical elements, Void is the rarest and most difficult to master, as well as the most dangerous to use. Prior to the establishment of the Fading Shadows path, the only Shugenja that could use Void magic belonged to the Isawa family. Now we move on from the Soshi to the other Scorpion Shugenja family, the Yogo. Where the Soshi are secretive and withdrawn because they generally want to make sure that no one understands their tricks, the Yogo are secretive and withdrawn because of the nature of the Yogo curse. Even by Scorpion standards, the Yogo are often regarded as kinda creepy and aloof, but then that's hardly unsurprising, given that almost every single one of that family is destined to one day betray those they love. And despite centuries of studying ways and means of removing the curse, none of it has succeeded. And so every Yogo lives with this magical sword of Damocles hanging over his or her head. And any attempt to try and avoid the curse only ensures that when it is finally fulfilled, it's even worse than if they hadn't tried to avoid it. Indeed, members of the family are taught from an early age to not try and resist the curse of betrayal. And so, all that any Yogo can do is pray that 1, the curse fulfills itself sooner rather than later, and 2, that the inevitable betrayal is minor and causes no lasting damage. Because thankfully, the curse that Fu Lang placed upon their namesake ancestor, the original Yogo, is vague enough that almost any kind of harm caused to a loved one can constitute a betrayal. Naturally, because of the curse, members of the Yogo family are explicitly barred from any important leadership positions in the Scorpion clan, and are expressly forbidden from marrying within the clan lest they pass on the curse. Though of course the Yogo family still do that anyway on the sly, because the only alternative to that is inbreeding. At any rate, it is interesting to note that the Yogo family's duty and purpose actually has the same origins as that of the Soshi family. It all begins with Shosuro faking her death after the Day of Thunder. You see, Bayushi, Kami founder of the Scorpion clan and Shosuro's lover, was in on the deception, and used her death as a way to bully Emperor Hante Genji into giving the Scorpion clan custody of the Black Scrolls, the artifacts used to seal away the essence of Fu Lang, the Mad God. Bayushi then entrusted the Black Scrolls to Yogo and his new Yogo family. His job and that of his descendants was to ensure that the scrolls were never lost and never opened, lest Fu Lang return to bedevil the mortal world once again. Only twice have any of the Black Scrolls slipped out of the Yogo family's custody. The first was when Bayushi Kuninoko, daughter of then Scorpion champion Bayushi Oshiso, ended up marrying Dragon Clan champion Togashi Kuzejiro, and in exchange for revealing an important secret about the Dragon Clan to her father, took one of the Black Scrolls with her to Dragon Lands. The second time was when another Scorpion champion, Bayushi Junzen, decided that for some reason he didn't really trust the Yogo, and so entrusted 3 of the Black Scrolls to his son, Tesaguri, only for that son to betray his trust by selling the 3 Black Scrolls in his custody to the Phoenix clan for money. Tesaguri was rewarded for his betrayal by being the first person to have his soul trapped forever in torment within the Traitor's Grove. So, given that their family task has been to ensure the safety of the most powerful and dangerous magical artifacts in the Empire's history, it's no wonder that the Yogo family would focus so heavily on Kuwasu, or warding magic. The way that Kuwasu works is that the Shugenja in question draws a symbol, usually in calligraphy, on paper with ink, and the symbol represents what he or she is trying to ward against. The Shugenja then channels magic, infusing the ward with his or her energy. Usually, the more powerful the Shugenja, the stronger and longer lasting the ward is. The paper on which the now active ward is drawn is then attached to something. It could be nailed to the side of a door or a box. And the purpose of the ward is that it will repel whatever it is designed to repel. If, say, a door or a box is warded. If the target being warded against tries to open the door or the box, unless it can overpower the ward with stronger magic, the door or box will remain sealed against them. They will not be able to open it. Yogo Shugenja, usually trained at the Whispered Secret Dojo in Shiro-Yogo, could, for example, ward certain buildings against members of other clans or the creatures of the Shadowlands, or evil spirits in general. A little known fact about the Yogo, though, is that their wards are powered with more than just their magic. Their only known technique, Yogo's Love, reveal that Yogo family wards also draw upon the power of the Yogo Curse. Thus, a Yogo ward is powered not just by their magic, but also by anger and resentment at 1,000 years of living under a curse that has haunted the family and always will at this point. Because of the curse, they must by necessity isolate themselves from not just the rest of the Empire, but even from their fellow Scorpion clanmates. Sometimes they can't even be close with members of their own family, as they would be the ones most likely hurt by the curse. That kind of heritage is bound to breed resentment, and at the very least the Yogo have found a productive way to channel that resentment, making their wards all the stronger. Like the Soshi, the Yogo family also have their own Taryuji specialists, the path of the Yogo duelist. And again, like with the Soshi duelist, it's pretty much what you would expect. Yogo duelists are trained in how to use Kuwasu during Taryuji, usually achieving this by learning the technique Yogo's Hardened Heart. And just as the illusionist and deceiver paths are the natural evolution of the Soshi Shugenja school, the path of the Yogo Ward Master is the natural evolution of the Yogo Shugenja school. And as their title implies, Ward Masters are the most powerful Kuwasu practitioners in the Yogo family. By mastering techniques like Ward Mastery and Way of the Ward Master, these Shugenja are capable of creating wards that are almost permanent. Create wards that are stronger than anyone else's. Especially talented ward masters have the ability to sense all wards in an immediate vicinity and instantly dispel lesser wards simply by walking into their area of effect. Naturally, it is the ward masters that are entrusted with the Yogo family's most important duty. They are the ones who maintain the wards protecting the Black Scrolls. Naturally, the last thing that anyone in the Empire wants is for someone to so much as touch, let alone open, one of those things. But of course, the best has been saved for last. The one that any Scorpion fan watching this has been salivating in anticipation for. It's time to talk about possibly one of the most iconic Shugenja paths in the entirety of L5R. The Kuroiban, or Black Watch. Any Scorpion Shugenja can join the Black Watch, but seeing as how that path is based out of the Whispered Secret Dojo, it is the Yogo family that run it, and Yogo Shugenja that make up the majority of it. The Black Watch has its origins in the aftermath of the second rising of Ichiban the Blood Speaker. Founded by Yogo Itoju, the younger brother of the unnamed Yogo daimyo at the time. Like many of his contemporaries, having witnessed what the undead hordes and blood magic using minions of Ichiban had unleashed on the Empire, Itoju was of the opinion that more was needed to safeguard the Empire against future attacks by Maho Tsukai. His first move in that direction was to approach the Kuni family with the offer of an alliance of exchanged information. The Yogo would offer their extensive knowledge in defensive wards, while the Kuni would offer their expertise in dealing with the Shadowlands and the Taint. The Kuni were wary at first, the Scorpion clan do have a certain reputation, but eventually the alliance was established and proved a stable and profitable one for both families. Around the same time, the Kuni family was establishing the Witch Hunters, and this gave Itoju ideas of his own. He knew that the most dangerous Maho cults would be those that could operate without the eyes of the law ever discovering them. And there was only one way to deal with such secretive enemies: the creation of an equally secretive organization to counter them. An organization that officially would not exist. And as such, an organization that would not be bound by imperial law. And so Itoju approached Emperor Hantei XXII with his proposal, promising that this elite cadre of Maho hunting Shugenja would serve at his family's direct command. Hantei XXII agreed to this, and so, in secret, the Black Watch was officially founded. As its founder and first leader, Itoju then created the Yogo Jite, a weapon and Nemuranai that would serve as the symbol of office for the head of the Black Watch. As a magic artifact, the Yogo Jite enhances both the magical and combat abilities of its wielder, and can even store one spell inside of it that the caster may use whenever needed. Eventually, replicas of the Yogo Jite were created for other members of the Kuro Iban, even with similar abilities, but they were never as potent as the original. Itoju served the Empire well in this new capacity, but alas, the Yogo curse eventually caught up with him, when his youngest brother, who was also second in command of the Black Watch, was captured by a Bloodspeaker cult. Itoju was faced in that moment with a choice. He could immediately track down and rescue his brother, or he could let the Bloodspeakers kill his brother, thus buying time for the Black Watch to uncover not only the full extent of the cult, but also expose the underworld elements that were supporting it, allowing him to tear out the entire network, root, and branch. Itoju chose his duty to the Empire over loyalty to family. The cult and its allies were destroyed in the end, but his brother's life was forfeit. And Itoju never really recovered from this betrayal, retiring to a monastery shortly thereafter. But he had left behind a potent weapon against the enemies of the Empire. As expected of the most secretive and elite Shugenja path in the entire Empire, never mind the Scorpion clan, the Kuro Iban is highly selective in who it chooses to join. It's not enough to be an exceptionally talented Shugenja, one must also have demonstrated extreme trustworthiness to be invited in. Those few deemed worthy are subjected to an incredibly harsh 6-month crash course in the techniques and methods of the Kuro Iban, with the final test being sent out on either a solo mission or operating with one partner. It's never mentioned what happens to aspirants who wash out, but given that the Black Watch is supposed to be a secret from almost everyone in the Empire, I wouldn't be surprised if failures are quietly eliminated. That or the incredibly harsh training regimen kills them in the process. What is known is that any member of the Black Watch who succumbs to taint or betrays the organization's secrets are promptly expelled and assassinated. Generally, agents of the Kuro Iban operate alone, sometimes with a partner, but it is very, very rare to have more than one agent working the same investigation. They have a network of safe houses in all the major cities, allowing them to operate across the entire empire. These safe houses are guarded by wards that are only visible to those who have been initiated into the Black Watch itself. The Black Watch have no sensei per se. Generally, the only teaching that happens within the organization is when one of its members discovers a new spell or technique and then spreads the knowledge to his compatriots. The Kuro Iban's agents employ such techniques as the Black Watch, which allows an agent to determine whether or not a target is tainted, regardless of any concealing magics. Greater Warding, which enables an agent to build powerful wards more swiftly against their enemies. And Seek the Darkness, which allows a Kuro Iban agent to uncover the tainted by observing how the local kami interact with the tainted person. By such methods, many a Maho cult has been nipped in the bud without anyone in the Empire the wiser. The Shugenja of the Scorpion clan are secret, dedicated, and ruthless. Honor always takes second place to duty. And any tool or spell that will serve the Empire, they will use without hesitation, whether it be illusions or wards, whether it's uncovering secrets or guarding them. The Scorpion Shugenja remain ever vigilant against any magical threats to the Empire. As the saying goes, there is a reason why the Emperor of Rokugan has 3 hands. The right hand defends the Emperor's lands. The left hand defends the Emperor's honor. The underhand defends the Emperor's secrets. And of all the magic users in the Empire, though few would ever admit it, there are none more suited to this duty than the Shugenja of the Scorpion clan. Before there was Ellen Ripley. Before there was Wonder Woman. There was the original action heroine, Atalanta. now available in ebook, paperback, and audio form. Links in the description.